Thank you for downloading this RealAgriculture podcast. Excite your crops with inputs from Excite Bio. Access nitrogen and phosphorus with Excite Bio's lineup of inoculants and ag biologicals. Since 2010, they've been helping farmers harness the power of the soil. Learn more at excitebio.ca. That's XITEBIO.ca.
Shaun Haney here with RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio. It's time for another episode of Wiesemeyer and Haney podcast. I'm joined by my good friend, Jim Wiesemeyer. He is DC analyst with Pro Farmer. Hey, Jim, how are you doing?
Always good to be on your program, Shaun.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you. So, Jim, let's talk Farm Bill. This is something that was supposed to be done last year. It continues to face hurdles here in the early part, Q1 of 2024. What's the latest?
Well, number one, that's why I never put a year on a farm bill. I've learned that long time ago. Two, because it may not even be the 2024 farm bill, if odds would think that it's going to be kicked to 2025. Why do I say that? House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, yesterday admitted that with the kerfuffles over our fiscal year 2024 spending issues that's ongoing today as we speak at the White House, that's going to no longer will they be able to discuss the Farm Bill on the House floor in March. Not many of us believed that that was possible anyway. Maybe he means March next year, by the way. The reason why the Farm Bill is not moving, it's boring, because we've known this for months. One, there continues to be a funding issue. Where to get the funding, how much, etc. The House Republicans are looking for $50 billion of additional funding. You tell me that's easy to find in this environment. The Senate has found $5 billion more. But I don't see the thrust, Shaun, to get this done, because in the Senate, you have Stabenow. She already got $20 billion more dollars in conservation funding with prior legislation. The food stamps is almost on steroids anyway, with appropriation entitlement. And then their ranking member on the Senate Ag Committee, John Bozeman, Republican from Arkansas, he probably thinks, look, I need an increase in the reference prices, and I think there are good odds, and he's probably right, that the Republicans regain control of the Senate following November 5th election. So I think that he'll just want to wait. He won't ever say this publicly, that he's not going to cry if it doesn't get done this year.
Is the discussion about rising reference prices change with how the market has really fallen off?
I think you're going to see the pressure, if there's any pressure at all in the months ahead that will build to do something on the Farm Bill yet this year, it's lower price, very low prices for corn and soybeans. You dipped under previously, not too long ago, under $4 for corn. And if you dip under $11 for soybeans, that's a lot of pain, Shaun. You know you're in a price cost spiral. And you're going to start hearing from farmers calls up on Capitol Hill.
But if you're sitting on Capitol Hill, you know in your back pocket that, if we can't do this, if we can't support farmers through the Farm Bill, let's support them through more ad hoc style programs, which again kind of torpedoes some of the potential leverage to get a Farm Bill done.
True. I frequently say in my speeches in farm country that we have a Farm Bill almost every year, and that's your fiscal year ag appropriations. Yeah. And then on the disaster side with the ad hoc disaster payment programs, on top of that, USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack, I know he'll talk about that at the Commodity Classic that you'll be at. Yep. He keeps on telling lawmakers that, hey, tap the Commodity Credit Corporation if you really need more funding to help out farm program crops. So, yeah, there's other tools in the toolbox to help support farm income.
It is kind of a bit of a showcase, I guess. The Farm Bill was always looked upon as that piece of legislation that both sides could eventually come to terms and find some compromising and get it done. Not even the Farm Bill is
Yeah,
safe in this Congress.
I just think I won't say it's outlived its usefulness. You still need it. But, it's like employee reviews. Those are being second thoughts about employee reviews. There's a better way to probably do it. And I agree with that.
Okay, so Speaker Johnson is a bit distracted by some other things. One of them for sure is the government shutdown. What's happening there? Is this just regular procedure now? We threaten the shutdown, we do a continuing resolution, and we live to fight another day, or what happens this time?
Well, they can't live another day too much longer because after April this year, you have a crunch time of a 1% across the board cut in the prior fiscal year spending, and that includes defense. And the majority of Republicans don't want that. The rebels do, I guess. But so that's one. Two is that I'm not going to rule out a short-term extension of maybe a couple of weeks or so into March. The thing you'll watch out for today, Shaun, is one, there's a meeting at the White House at 11:30 Eastern time between Biden and the congressional leadership. Now, they've already spun prior to the meeting. What I would look for, if there's any hope of getting these 20% of funding bills done yet by midnight Friday, that's your deadline, and that includes USDA, by the way, Agriculture Department funding, they have to release the language of that measure today in order to get a 3-year time frame, a 3-day time frame, in order for lawmakers to review it. So we've got some testing to do today. How the White House meeting goes, whether or not the Republicans release actual appropriations language for these for 20% of U.S. government funding. If not, then odds rise a lot that you're going to have another stopgap spending bill. And some of these rebels in the House Republicans won't like that. But Johnson knows that he's going to need Democrats in order to get anything done anyway.
But doesn't that cook his goose when it comes to being the speaker in 6 months?
Well, normally it would have, but the Democrats are already whispering to him, hey, we'll help you out, get the votes to keep you in office. Now, I don't know what they want in return for that, if anything, but they're tired of the process too. That gives Johnson some leverage with his rebel conservatives in his own party, and the Democrats don't mind that. The key there is a number of these rebel Republicans in the House want what they call poison pill riders onto the bill, and the Democrats won't go along with that. So this is the game we played before, and I think you're seeing the country just say, come on, get your job done.
I feel like we've been here before. It wasn't too long. Is the motion to vacate still one member? Or
one member?
That still is. Oh,
yeah. I think next year, if the Republicans retain control of the House, that will change. But Johnson doesn't want to change it right now. But it should be changed because it allows a minority of the majority to rule.
Well, I'll be watching Hannity the day that Johnson sides with some Democrat votes to get some funding. That will be fascinating. Okay, let's move on to grocers. A lot of attention in Canada about the grocery market. The government has promised that, or I guess sort of been laying the groundwork for that. They've recruited, as if there's like a college football coach, recruiting a major U.S. grocer into the Canadian market to add more competition. There's been a lot of politics around the grocery market since the pandemic here in Canada, Jim. South of the border, two of the major grocers, Kroeger and Albertsons, are trying to merge, but that looks like it's a little bit more in doubt now due to the FTC.
Yeah, the FTC, along with 8 states and Washington, D.C., Shaun, filed a lawsuit to block that, almost $25 billion acquisition of Albertsons. And they cited concerns over negative impacts on workers' wages and grocery prices. Now, this also plays in, by the way, politics, to President Biden's March 7th State of the Union address, where he's going to bring up food prices and the reduced packages and all that. Now, the FTC said the acquisition would lead to higher food prices, there's your angle, and lower wages. So the companies, to be fair, the companies argue the combo would have the opposite effect by making operations more cost efficient and better able to compete with Amazon, Walmart, and Costco. They have a point there because, Barron's noted this morning that the combined merger would operate 5,000 stores, 228 billion in annual sales, combined market share 15 to 20%. But that would still be smaller than Walmart, which is more than 5,200 U.S. locations and more than a quarter of its sales in groceries. So, there's elements on both sides, but efficiency usually wins out in a court battle. So we'll see.
Yeah, I heard analysts say yesterday that by not allowing this merger, we're actually giving more competitive advantage to the Amazons and the Walmarts. And the grocery market and distribution and retail has changed so much that we're still looking at these traditional grocers as if they're only competing against each other. And that is just at this point not true whatsoever. And at a time where people are concerned about food affordability, scale, like you said, is a way that you get to cheaper food. And Amazon and Walmart are just massive, massive players in this space.
Yeah, efficiency. I personally agree with that. I like efficiencies in any industry, and this would bring it. And Canada ought to root for bringing either a portion of Kroger's up there, by the way. I shop at Harris Teeter. That's a Kroger subsidiary, and I love the store. And we have all sorts of options around where I live in the suburban Virginia. And I see an element of niche stores, Aldi's and things like that keeps those biggies very competitive. So it's just not the big ones. You need these small niche markets. I don't know whether we have Aldi's in Canada or not.
No, but we do have like Shoppers, which is owned by Loblaws, which is traditionally a drugstore.
Yeah.
Getting into some groceries on a small niche space and from a convenience standpoint, right? So
yes.
But Target, I heard, was starting to scale back in some of its grocery options and some of its stores. So, like, everybody goes to the grocery store and they see the prices have gone up, but we sort of think, man, the grocery store is making a lot of money. The margins aren't terribly great.
Very low, and it's the restaurants that makes your eyes pop and your wallet thinner when you go out to eat right now.
Have you bought a steak lately at a restaurant, man?
I buy smaller and smaller steaks in order to bring down I've been going back to London broil, my college days. Cheaper cuts.
I'll take the 3-ouncer, please. It's, wow. Okay, U.S. Mexico. There's a bit of a trade tiff. We could put it that way when it comes to corn getting into Mexico. What's the update on that trade skirmish?
Well, the update is that I think there's been some hypey news stories out there that there's been a sudden change. Not really. You had a dispute settlement panel convened in August last year, Shaun, with oral arguments are scheduled for June this year. But the panel's final report is expected November this year. Then that'll determine if Mexico must revoke the ban or face U.S. trade sanctions. Until then, Mexico's ban remains in place, and that's a ban on GMO corn for food purposes, not for feed. Yeah. This is a political issue in Mexico. I keep saying in my speeches, their current president, López Obrador, is from southern Mexico, where most of the tortillas are made. So that's primarily why he did this to begin with. That's going to go away after their elections in June when López Obrador is replaced by a new president. So there's your timeline. I think, and this is what U.S. government officials now are saying as well. This will go away later this year. You can't count on that, but it looks like it will go away.
We're trying to wait it out.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was familiar with based on where he was from and that being a factor in this. Politically, is this a personal project for him, or is this something that's, this policy very popular in Mexico? We don't hear a lot about that.
Well, it's very popular in southern Mexico for obvious reasons. But this goes on what's happening regretfully around the world, the U.S. included. We're turning protectionist, isolationist to a degree when it comes to military confrontations, but especially trade. And I think you're hearing that at the WTO ministerial talks this week, Shaun. That's ongoing again as we speak, and that's not a good sign. And you've got U.S. farm groups and farm state lawmakers in a bipartisan spirit saying, hey, U.S. trade officials, we've got a $10 billion U.S. ag trade deficit. That would have been unheard of years ago. And they're signaling partly that's the reason because of our U.S. trade policy that has not lived up to inking new bilateral or multilateral trade agreements. Our trade rep, Catherine Tai, said, no, it's really the value of the dollar is robust right now. That's not aiding exports. And two, most of those imports we have in the ag area are non-U.S. based products, distilled spirits, things like that. At least that's how she spins it.
Or part of an integrated value chain like we have in beef and pork as an example too, where we've got multiple times through in the production cycle, things are passing back and forth. Just on this corn issue, Jim, how can Mexican corn producers not compete with U.S. corn? Like, I would, is it because of the lack of scale, or what's happening?
Combined, lack of scale, and two, their infrastructure, although improving, and they could be a formidable force in the years ahead. The reason? Investment money, world investment money, including big time U.S., is investing in Mexico, primarily as a result of that. We're not totally delinking from China, but you can see the investment money pouring through Mexico. And Shaun, there's a linkage here too with this trade issue. Some people are saying this is why, especially in the case of corn and soybeans, you're going to hear it at Commodity Classic, this is why the movement is towards biofuels as we move more back into domestic utilization of our commodities, relying less on exports. Now, there's disagreement in some quarters about that, but that's why this decision Friday, I think Vilsack and our EPA administrator, Michael Regan, I think are going to be on the program together. They're going to make news because listen to their spin on how they talk about whatever they announce, what Treasury has decided on which feedstocks are eligible for sustainable aviation fuel, pretty big tax incentives. I would listen carefully because that's the big kahuna for corn country. They want to qualify corn-based ethanol as an ingredient. I know that's interesting in Canada too with your canola.
Yep, absolutely. Renewable diesel, big topic, indeed, and all for the same reasons. If we're going to face increasing protectionism when it comes to the exports of commodities for food purposes, we need to build more domestic demand. Well, we can only chew through so much of those products from a food consumption standpoint, and so one of the ways to diversify that demand is fuel. So, and
there's a livestock angle because you'll get more meal. If you crush for oil, you'll get more meal, and that'll help the hog and poultry industries for sure.
And dairy as well.
And dairy, absolutely.
Canola meal for sure. Yep. Hey, Jim, this has been a ton of fun. All the best to you, and we'll chat with you again soon.
I'll look for your reports from the Commodity Classic, okay?
Cheers.
See you.